I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Fitchburg Bicycle Committee. It's February 2nd, 2021. And the first order of business this morning is to approve the draft minutes that Phil sent out to you from December 1st, 2020. Have you all seen them and had a chance to look at them? I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Joe and seconded by Angie. All those if there's not any further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Your minutes are approved. Okay, do we have anybody online, Scott, who we have a public appearance for non-agenda items?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, moving on to agenda review. We're going to be talking about a number of items. I'm not going to go through them individually. There are 9 items on there plus Phil's report. And we've got a lot to cover today. So I want everybody to give us your input. And I also want to wish you a happy 2021 for this bicycle committee. We have a lot to do, but I think we've got the manpower, the person power, rephrase that, the person power to get this done. And we'll move forward. So Phil, I'm going to turn the item over to you first. 5A, which is the bicycling related events in and around Fitchburg. So the floor is yours and we're exactly on time.
You're muted.
I'm muted, yes, thanks. So there's nothing that I'm aware of coming up in February or March for bike-related events. But 2 things a little bit farther out that I figured merited some discussion, at least right now, and I think we're going to want to come back to them again in our April meeting. But I wanted to bring them up now and ask for some ideas from the committee. The first one is April is Earth Month, and last year everything kind of got thrown out the window because that's right when we were going into pandemic quarantine and didn't really have a chance to do much of anything. But one thing I had been discussing was trying to do some kind of a bike commuter workshop for any interested residents, possibly in coordination with a biking tour of Fitchburg sustainability related things. So possibly, sorry, a little frog in my throat this morning. So possibly looking at like the O'Brien solar field or some of the solar panel installations on some of Fitchburg's municipal buildings, some of our water saving efforts or the LEED Gold Library, things like that. So I'm curious, I think at least one of those could also work really well in May, which is National Bike Month. But I'm curious what y'all think about something like that for Earth Month, and if you have any other ideas or if you'd be interested in either one of those.
I do like the idea of the bike tour. I know Wade in planning had done something similar with a agriculture bike tour several times, and I think that was really well received. So kind of similar vein of let's bike around the city and see different agricultural practices, see some legacy farms. And I think, again, that was very well received. I think both just the community as a whole, but then in the bike community as well. And I think it was helpful just for people to see, hey, you actually can get it around Fitchburg pretty easily, just sticking to bike paths.
Yeah, I'll definitely check in with Wade on that. I wasn't aware that he'd done that before, but that I'd love to pick his brain on some of that.
Yeah, he used to coordinate it with Fitchburg Days, and then I think once Fitchburg Days stopped happening, he stopped doing it.
Other comments from our committee members?
I remember back a few years ago, Oregon did something like that. It started out in Oregon and it took you to all of it was done by the Rotary Club, and it took you to all the historical points in Oregon, and it was quite well received for as long as they did it.
I think it's a good idea, Phil. We were going to need somebody to lead it. And if Wade was the one that did the one a couple years ago, find somebody who can lead us around the city. I think it's a good suggestion. I do know the seniors would be interested in some bicycle rides as we get more to time to be outside. So I think there's a lot of potential here. We're going to have somebody organize it and get the message out. That's my 2 cents.
Yep, and I think that I think a bike tour like that, I could look into organizing myself, possibly with Wade, or it's possible that just that maybe reaching out to Bike Fitchburg, because that's sort of an advocacy thing, kind of aligns with their mission, and so I could reach out to Tony Hartman and see if that's something they might be interested in partnering on.
And Tony was part of the Wade's previous one. I think we made him carry the
perfect.
cooler for that. So
I think that's
yeah.
a good idea, Phil. Let Bike Fitchburg take some lead here as we work on
Sure.
advocacy and organization, and then city staff don't have to. You can give them the points. The other one I would add that I've been joking with some friends about, but it fits in with this, is stopping at several of our watering holes around Fitchburg. You're sitting with Great Dane, you're sitting with Hop House now, and Delta Beer Lab on the east side of Fitchburg, and they just about connect on the trails. That may be something else to think about down the road as you look for evening activities.
Yeah, I think that I'd have to look into. I'm sort of curious if the city we're going to coordinate, or the city committee are going to coordinate any kind of public bicycling event. This was kind of why I wanted to involve Bike Fitchburg last year. Is I thought that I wasn't sure if it got into any kind of like we shouldn't favor one business over another in Fitchburg, and so if we schedule an event and it goes to particular places, I wanted to be careful about that. But that's still something for me to look into and just make sure that I'm not doing anything from kind of with city backing that would be inappropriate, or biking to Hop House and a city event going to an alcohol vendor. Again, these are all things I love, but yeah, that's just something I want to be careful about. But if Bike Fitchburg led and organized and advocated something like this, then it would be easier, I think, for them to do that.
I would also throw in a pitch for getting Baltazar involved. I know you guys were talking to him because he, is pretty good at bringing the community together, and would be able to do it in a way that I think is friendly to families, to youth, and to Spanish-speaking families. I would also throw a pitch in there if it is through Bike Fitchburg and not through the city, to include Luna's on there. It's technically across the border in Madison, but it'll be a good starting point.
I'm sorry, I missed that. To include
Luna's.
Oh yeah,
Luna's Groceries. Yeah.
But you referring to the store right by the McDonald's there, Joe? That one, or is there's one across the street, two in there in Jamestown? Which one?
Yeah, Luna's over in the Allied neighborhood.
I think that's a good idea to include everybody across the city. So that would be good.
Yeah.
And I do think, Phil, here's what we maybe should do. Maybe the committee, we should write something up to give to Bike Fitchburg, because I was going to report later today, and Angie can help me here, but I don't see Angie.
She's here.
There she is, right in the middle. Sorry. And is that they're getting ready to go through leadership transition. They're going to have in February a new president, a new vice president, et cetera. And I think if we can write something to them, telling them what we'd like to see, it'd be a good idea. So all those points are good that people have raised.
Awesome, thanks. So I think it would make sense to do something like that with Earth Month, just because it is a biking event, as long as we pick a date that's warm enough, but it is going to be going around to a number of different kind of broader environmental themed locations around the city. The other one, I think so May is still going to be National Bike Month. And technically there is a bike to work week and a bike to work day, and that's the bike to work week is May 14 to 23, and bike to work day is May 21st. I'm not. I know that sometimes the Wisconsin Bike Fed has used a slightly different week or bike or day for those events, but at least right now that's what's set for the national ones. In the past, we have, or at least Bike Fitchburg has, and maybe some committee members have volunteered at this as well. But Bike Fitchburg has set up a bike station at the bike roundabout for bike commuters to stop at, get counted, pick up, possibly some early morning coffee or something like that. My guess is at this point, by May, we're still going to have enough social distancing guidelines in place that something like that might be difficult. So that's something that we'll kind of have to play by ear, but that's where I was thinking that maybe having a bike commuter workshop, or even like just putting together a set of slides or an infographic to have online and try to really actively direct people to it still at least have that kind of bike commuting theme going on in May.
And I think that would be nice too, especially since social distancing or not, I think the location where Bike Fitchburg usually has their station is probably not going to be accessible.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think that's still going to be closed all year long, and I need to check with the sewerage districts on that. But yeah.
I'll tell you, I was walking down there last week. It is closed until next December. And right now, the roundabout doesn't exist.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't clear when we initially got a report of that construction project, whether it was going to be kind of open and closed alternatingly or just closed down for the entire time. And it looks like it's going to be the latter. But I do want to get confirmation of that. But
That's
yeah, then
the
having...
sign says.
Okay. Then having some kind of commuter thing, and that's something that, again, that's not until May, so I might put it on the April agenda to possibly bring something to the committee and ask for some feedback, or if anybody's interested in working on something like that with me, has any experience doing bike commuter training or workshops, I'd love to pick your brain on it. And if not, then I'll get some feedback in April, hopefully.
Okay, you want to keep moving on to the frequency update, Phil?
Sure. Oh, and then one other thing. This will come up again at a later meeting. But the one event that I have seen that's kind of notable is the Wisconsin Bike Fed does every year. They're right across Wisconsin, so that's happening again July 30 to August 1st. It's from La Crosse to Green Bay. So it's not including Fitchburg at all, so not necessarily an item for this meeting, but at least something for the active cycling community in Fitchburg to be aware of. So frequency.
That's a really great event. I've done it 4 years. The ride across Wisconsin. So
awesome.
Highly
and I know
it is a great event.
There will be a couple other events. I know there are a lot of good cycling events all around the state. I was going to start naming them, and that could take a while, but
yeah.
Good to be aware of, and I may try to just saying this out loud now so that I can go back to the video and remind myself, but I may try to put some sort of like a biking event notice on the Fitchburg webpage if I feel like that's something that I could easily maintain. I don't know that people are going to our biking website to look for events, but it might be nice to have them there. Sorry, Mark, you directed me to 5B, the meeting frequency for 2021. So we discussed this a little bit back in December, that Mark spoke to the city administrator and the mayor and got approval for increasing our meetings from 4 to 6 for this year. So I scheduled 6 meetings, chatted a little bit with Misty Dodge, the finance director, and was reminded that that has a budget implication and needed to be squared away as well. So I put together with Sonia a budget amendment to basically, because the budgetary impact is pretty small, just $100 or so per meeting. What we're going to do for 2021 is we wrote a budget amendment to transfer funding from elsewhere within the planning department that we think is probably, hopefully not going to be needed this year. and that's going to cover the additional 2 meetings for 2021. If we do want to continue the 6 meetings going forward in 2022, I don't see any reason that we wouldn't want to. We'll need to make sure that this year in the budget process, we get those additional 2 meetings approved by council and budgeted for. So this is mostly just an informational thing. We are good for 6 meetings for this year, but it'll still take a little bit of work to keep that going forward.
I think the key on this, and I guess Alder Maldonado will look for your support here for $200. We've got a lot of work to do as a committee. And I just think it's going to go on at least through 2021. If it reaches a point we don't need to get together that much, then we will go from there. And I just see that our colleagues supports this. So thank you, Joe. Okay, Phil, keep moving. You're doing great.
All right. On to, sorry, let me just get this pulled up here.
And while we're doing that, good morning, Andrew.
Oh, hey, Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Phil, will you introduce Andrew to the group too?
Yeah, really quickly. So as of, I think sometime in December, is that right, Andrew? We have a full-time transportation engineer for the city again. So that was Bill Balke's role, and he's supported a lot of the bike network projects, but he has moved up to Public Works Director. So Andrew was recently hired from state of Colorado. Is that right, Andrew, to take that role?
I lived in Colorado. I worked for the city of Denver, and then had a brief stint with WSDOT before heading here.
So welcome to Andrew, and thanks for calling in. Andrew's going to be going forward a bit more active than Bill in terms of communicating with us about bike network impacting projects that Public Works is undertaking. So he was kind enough to join in on the call this morning and answer any questions we might have after I've gone through this set. So projects impacting bike network, is everybody seeing the slides here? Great. So it's mostly a similar set to what we've seen before. And just got the list up here, but I'll kind of go through them one by one. We've got the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction is continuing this year. We've got down to about Post Road is where the construction ended last year. Traceway Drive, I think. Yep. And we're going to continue that all the way down just a little bit past McKee this year. That's going to extend the multi-use path on the west side of Fish Hatchery all the way down to McKee for pedestrians, cyclists, you name it. It's going to improve the road itself, and there's also going to be a little bit of work done at the McKee and Fish Hatchery intersection. So this is something there's been a lot of discussion on that. There have been several public meetings and a lot of documentation online. I know we've discussed it before. I don't know if that needs any discussion or if anybody has any questions on the Fish Hatch work for this year. Hearing none, the next big one for the year is this McCoy-MM intersection. So that's something that we discussed at both of our last 2 meetings. That's going to be adding a signal for vehicles here at the intersection. I was unable to call into the Thursday evening public meeting that was held. I don't know if anybody here was able to join that. Angie's nodding. Unless anything changed from the Thursday meeting, my understanding is that there's still going to be a right turn slip lane from McCoy turning south onto MM, and there will be a stoplight there for vehicles turning right. And is that still the plan, Andrew?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. And then the Capital City Trail, which currently kind of does that fun thing where it sort of runs along MM right here and then crosses to East Clayton, just sort of in the middle of the road. We're kind of bringing the Cap City Trail up here along the other side of MM and crossing at that intersection to make it a little bit safer for cyclists. And I believe down the road, the plan is to then connect the Cap City Trail a little bit more directly east here so that you don't have that sharp right turn and then left again up East Clayton. That's a little bit farther forward, but at least this year's project will bring the Cap City Trail across at that intersection to make crossing MM hopefully much easier and safer.
Yeah, we did get great feedback there. Yeah,
Good.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and if you have any additional feedback, feel free to let me know now or feel free to email.
And
I
I'll
can pull up
definitely
the kind of proposed design if that would be helpful, but otherwise it's on the website now, and we actually got the links to work, so I can download it if you want to.
Yeah, and I think we had the design specs available at the last meeting, and I showed that.
Okay, awesome.
But those are detailed and hard for me to follow. The next one is the Cyan Road rework. That again we've discussed from a little bit south of Lacey down at Aurora Avenue, up to just beyond the Cyan McCoy intersection. So this is going to include some. This will include some additional bike lanes as well along the side. Am I correct? There's going to be a roundabout added at Cyan and Lacey, or am I thinking of a different project?
It's potential. We're looking at roundabouts or a signal at Lacey because of the nearby rail crossing. A roundabout's really not feasible there, but we're either looking at kind of keeping the all-way for a little bit or putting in a signal there. At Sherrill, it would be roundabout or signal, and then up at Nine Bark, that might be either roundabout or an all-way. And then up at McCoy Cyan, that would probably be a roundabout or a continuous green T signalized intersection. So a couple options.
Are we taking it as far as Irish Lane and Cyan?
We're not. There's a separate roadway reconstruction project, resurfacing, happening south of our project down to Irish, including Irish. But that'll just be resurfacing. Won't be a full reconstruction like this.
Oh, okay, because that intersection at Cyan and Irish Lane is pretty dangerous, quite frankly.
Yeah, we have seen some crashes there. We are definitely looking into some striping changes along with that resurfacing project.
I've seen a fair number of near crashes there because of blockage of one of the houses on the corner has a lot of greenery there, and a lot of people think that's a four-way stop, and it's not. And so I live right south of that, and basically everybody in our neighborhood knows that you need to go half the speed limit going through there if you want to avoid getting hit.
Sure.
And that's also an area between Irish Lane and Lacey that does not have a paved shoulder at all, but does have some curves, and it would behoove the city to put a paved shoulder there.
Okay, yeah, it's helpful. It's good to know. Thanks, Angie. And we do have, I will note, we do have some cross sections we started to lay out for this project. I believe right now we're looking at I want to say it's the 25th, I believe, is we're looking at a public information meeting for this project. I'll clarify that, but it's still tentative right now. But I think, so we're definitely trying to solicit some more information ahead of that meeting. We'll have cross sections for the different segments of roadway and intersection alternatives. So please feel free to weigh in on that, and I can get that over to Phil. He can send that out with the. I can send that out to you guys.
Awesome, thanks. Any other questions or discussion on this project? All right, on to the next one. So what we just had discussed, the bike roundabout is closed because of this Nine Springs Interceptor project that the Sewage District is undertaking. They need to improve and replace some interceptors going underneath several sections of bike trail. So this stretch of Cannonball all the way south here to Military Ridge, down to McKee Road is closed, I guess pretty much through this entire year. So we do have detours marked. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word, and it's sitting right up there on the screen. We have detours marked to go down the Cap City Trail, Badger State, across that nice new bridge, and then you can take the new multi-use path on the south road of McKee, on the south of McKee Road, to reconnect to Military Ridge Path. There are also, of course, some other bike lanes around for detours, but yeah, this project should be completed by the end of this year, and then we'll have the bike roundabout back in service again. And that one I think got some pretty heavy discussion at the last couple meetings, so I'm guessing not much in the way of comments there. And then this is just kind of a minor one. For the most part, the Capital City reconstruction is done. They got it all the way. This map needs to be updated. This is from a year ago when Dane County Parks thought they were still going to do this in 3 phases. Last year, phase 3 ended roughly here at the bike roundabout. This year, they're hoping to extend their reconstruction work all the way to Fitchburg, but they have some planning to do on that yet. They're also looking to address some ongoing flooding concerns at the bike roundabout. And again, hoping that planning will be completed by sometime this summer. And then I'm not sure if the work that follows will happen this summer, if that'll be pushed off to next year. So we'll just kind of see how that happens. And then other projects scheduled for 2021 and potentially beyond. Hopefully, I believe we're planning to get all of this completed this year. So Lacey Road over here from Badger State Trail almost all the way to Fitchburg. On-street bike lanes with 2-foot buffers and a multi-use trail along the north side of Lacey. This one we've discussed. So this is the Sain up to McCoy and then the McCoy intersection. Here. Is that right? Yep. So here's more Sain work discussed. So the getting bike lanes down through Irish Lane, I know that right of way and acquiring property has been kind of a headache there, Andrew. I think that's just something we're going to have to keep discussing. I don't believe I've heard any new updates lately from Bill on that. But kind of on that point that Angie made about extending bike lanes farther south along Sain has definitely been a concern that's come up in meetings past. And I think just making sure we're doing everything we can to make sure that the property, that whole way, is available for bike lanes would be ideal. A signal over by Terravesa at the intersection of Lacey Road and Highway MM has been completed. So that's now operational, ready for use. McCoy and MM and Military Ridge Trail Bridge over Fitchburg Road was discussed at the last meeting, I think in December, possibly in September before that, and that has been completed. So Military Ridge Trail Bridge is accessible again. That's a really quick run through everything else scheduled for this year. But again, if you have any questions or comments, speak up now, or you can always email me or Andrew if you have any questions or concerns.
I have some comments regarding that, and I think that we don't do ourselves a service by referring to these as bike lanes on, I guess I consider paved shoulders part of a complete street project where it benefits bikers. It benefits the city of Fitchburg when big trucks go down those roads and they can actually fit on the lane or on a paved shoulder and not chew up the gravel, and then the city has to redo the road faster. I really think that we benefit from thinking of not just bikers, but walkers, truck drivers, the cars. I think we benefit a lot by thinking about everybody. In the past few years, Wayland Road was a classic example of they didn't pave sections of it that, quite frankly, having to ride in and out of traffic because you have a paved section and you don't, you have another paved section and you don't. I don't think that that's a safe situation for anybody on the side of the road. The next year after that, with Irish Lane between Sain and MM, the fact that they didn't pave any shoulders on that entire stretch is insulting, quite frankly. I think I really would like to have us be able to see what the plans are, because with some of these projects like Lacey coming up. I'm really not gonna believe that there's a paved shoulder or a complete street look at that road until it actually happens, because that's kind of been our MO through the years. I think in order to have safe streets, we need to look at paved shoulders, and I understand that you can't claim sides of roads and pave sides of roads for biking purposes. But what about for everybody in the community? We're not just talking bikers. And I think it's something that has to be looked at. I think we need to look at the whole picture. And that's actually why I'm here and why I attend these meetings, is to look at the whole picture and not just for bikers.
Yeah, I can check in with Tom. I know that's his resurfacing project, and see kind of what we've looked at so far. I know we're starting to kind of design that out for resurfacing later this year to get out to bid. So yeah, we can definitely double check to see what we've looked at, and what budget we have and what we can accommodate.
Right, I really feel like the adjustments, and you weren't here at that time, I feel like the adjustments that we made on Wayland, I think the only reason we haven't had a major accident on Wayland with somebody along the side is that COVID hit and the traffic's been significantly less. So, and I'd be happy to walk somebody through where I see my concerns to be on that road in particular, on the hill. And also my concerns with Irish Lane, but I really do think that it has to be something that's looked at on everything, and not just in the busiest sections of Fitchburg. I think a lot of what we're doing in the busiest sections of Fitchburg, where there's a lot of population, is being done really well, and I'm really impressed. So please don't take this as all negative, but I am concerned about some of the most recent projects and the lack of consideration.
You're in District 4, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. What do your alders think about your concerns?
Well, interestingly enough, Tom Clauder was one of the ones that really wanted to pave the hill on Wayland Road. And so sections of it were paved. We had a paved shoulder up to the very top of the hill. And they changed it, they added a little bit more of it, but now the paved shoulder ends halfway down the hill, going both ways. Personally, I felt like people could see me cut into traffic on the top of the hill better than they could partway down a hill. Share the road signs don't work, I can guarantee it. I literally ride Wayland almost every day, and I use a rear view mirror, and I'm gauging when I'm gonna hit where I have to come into traffic based on where the car coming up behind me is. And I will deliberately cut into traffic early so that I don't have to cut in at the exact point that that vehicle is going to pass me, because the cars are not paying attention to the ins and outs of that road. Any police officer would tell you that you want to be as predictable as possible, and you're going to be hit or you're going to put yourself in danger if you are cutting in at a point that they're not expecting you to cut in. So just my feeling, I would like us to be included in this process and to have us have a look before things are set in stone, because I believe we see things from a different point of view than a truck driver or car driver.
Yeah, that's helpful. And are you specifically talking about Sain in this case, or is it Sain both sections and Lacey?
Also Lacey, they're talking about making some changes to Lacey, which I think is fantastic. I think it's great. I'd like to know that it's the way that they're actually talking.
Yep.
Because the plan was to pave all of the shoulders of Wayland, and it didn't happen. And Irish Lane, it's very difficult for people to walk on that road or in the gravel on the side, but they have to because there's nothing paved along the side. And that's right through a residential area. If you're looking at, from underneath Highway 14 to why couldn't we give people on that area a paved shoulder? There's a gravel shoulder. They could have paved it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. And just to note, on Lacey Road, we're having a public meeting on Wednesday, the 17th at 5:30 to 7. So we'll be going over the plan set then for that. And it does include, bike lanes, buffer bike lanes, and a multi-use trail on the north side. So.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I just not seeing it on the things that I've heard it before. I went to budget meetings and listened to what they were gonna do to Wayland, and it never transpired, so.
And my understanding is at least city, I don't know if it's a written policy, but at least in practice, city policy is different now than it was when Wayland was constructed, and there's more of a commitment to ensuring that projects are being built out to accommodate both cars and bikes. I know that some complete streets things have been complicated by the last some things that were passed by state legislature under the last governor. And so there are some things that we're able to do and some things that we, have to be, that just require different considerations.
Yes, I completely understand. I would also like to even have an input on signs, because you see signs that say share the road. You know what? That doesn't matter. People don't share the road. There has to be a sign that says something more appropriate, like, paved shoulder merging or something. I don't know what needs to be said, but the share the road signs don't make a difference.
Yeah,
So.
we could look at, bikes may useful lane, those sorts of alternatives in some cases. Yep, or appropriate. Yeah, we can definitely start looking at that. And that's more of a systemic, driving multiple streets and making sure that we're consistent.
Well, and I'd be happy to take people in a drive, in a car, in a bike, whatever, but I also know there's certain intersections where, okay, we lose the paved shoulder at the point that cars are coming from two different directions. And if you're gonna have to lose the paved shoulder, why are you losing the paved shoulder when people are making left or right-hand turns as you're going? I mean, it's things like that I would like to see taken into consideration.
Sure. That totally makes sense. Yeah, I'm happy to work with you and learn more about kind of what the trouble spots are. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that goes for everybody, and tell your friends. I'm trying to get up to speed with kind of what we can do to help. So.
Andrew, if you could meet with Angie offline, I think it'd be very helpful.
Awesome.
Again, I think her points are well taken. I think you got city feedback about MM and McCoy. A couple nights ago that you didn't cover much of today about the double crossing, which really bothers me as a bicyclist. And I think we got to look at all this stuff. The key is input from your constituencies, and at least we're biking around Fitchburg.
Yep.
And I see Joe has offered to be included. I think it'd be a good idea if you guys could meet.
Wonderful. I'd be happy to.
Awesome.
Andrew, can you set that up then, or?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. We've gotten behind schedule, and I want to move on to number D, which is really an informational item. Joe, Phil, and myself had a conference call 2 weeks ago with Marion Matheny of Echo Counter to deal with, because I've kind of gone into the goal journey now. We want to talk to them about getting an accurate count of who's using our trails and where to put these counters and what we can do. And Marion has given us some options, anywhere from the $50,000 pretty one that's down by Camp Randall to about $3,000 to $4,000 with rubber tubes going across the trail. We've got to figure out two things. One is how we pay for it. And second of all, what do we need? And Phil has some ideas about where it's needed. So this will be an evolving item, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Phil, Joe, you were there. Do you have anything else to add right now?
Summed it up well.
Okay. All right. Well, more to come on that one then. Phil, you look like you're going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that there is one other possibility. So the data that we've been getting from Dane County Parks with the counter they put up by the bike roundabout on the Capital City Trail, that's from a different company called TrafX. And I think that would just be something if we definitely want to pursue bike counters, then kind of thinking about the range of options available to us from those two different companies, what the costs are, and what we're actually looking for in a counter. If it's just getting raw data that we can use, or if we're looking for something that's more visible, or even having a display, and that's going to be much more expensive, but comes with different benefits to the city and to our bicycle planning. So those are things that we're going to certainly be talking about as this discussion continues.
So we'll keep this working, and we'll keep you folks advised, pull you in as we need to. Again, having our Alder there and having Phil there. The other thing you should know is some of these options require electricity to be put in. And there's not a lot of electricity around the trail. So some more to come on that. I want to also call to your attention, in your packet, Phil gave you what I'm calling the gold work plan or the gold journey. I updated that for 2021. We have this, I'm going to call, I don't know what I can call it, but we have an ad hoc group of Phil, myself, Joe, Andy Potts, Steve Arnold, Tony Hartman, and Angela Kinderman from the Chambers also sitting on it. We're kind of tracking this to know that by the end of 22, we need to have an application in. So we need to get some of these things moving forward. I think the input on construction that we just talked about is a good thing. I think some of these organized rides is another good thing. I think the working relationship with Bike Fitchburg are all positive things that hopefully will allow us to move from silver to gold. So take a look at the work plan. If you have any concerns or you want to serve on any of this stuff, let Phil or myself know. Is that okay, Phil?
Yep, that sounds great. And I think I included that Gold Journey work plan in the agenda for December, but the most updated one you sent me was not in this packet.
Oh, okay.
So I can email that out to the committee after this meeting.
Thank you very much. I apologize. There's nothing new on there, just some updates. I'm going to keep moving since we've kind of gotten behind, and I'm going to turn this one over to Phil. But the last meeting, we had a discussion about the bicycle registration ordinance in December, and we had Ned Hartwick from the police department. Lieutenant Hartwick was there. Since then, there's been a couple of meetings, and I think we have to take some action today.
Uh-oh.
That's correct. Sorry, just getting my morning brew.
All right, floor's yours. That's fine. Floor's yours.
So the bike registration ordinance, we had that great conversation in our last meeting with Officer Hartwick, who has, I believe, been on the FPD's bike unit in the past. And we just, we wanted to keep moving that item forward. We were definitely getting some encouragement from Steve Arnold and from Tony Hartman to do so. So Mark and I think it was Mark and Tony and Steve and I met with Chief Brecklin and Officer Hartwick in late December, early January to talk about the bike registration ordinance. I did put a bit of what we discussed into a memo in the agenda packet. And then also just wanted to bring some of that discussion here today and have not we don't have anything to formally vote on yet, but I'd like to at least get kind of the sense of the committee before I move forward with whatever we're going to do next. So just as a brief recap, the background information is that Fitchburg has a mandatory bike registration ordinance in the books that comes with a number of additional policies. You have to have your registration displayed at all times. If you don't, there could be a ticket coming your way. If a bike is lost, that registration is used to return the bike to you. Speaking with the officers, the registrations, those stickers aren't really used for anything other than returning bikes to residents. If they're lost, if they're stolen and recovered. It's not a moneymaker for the city. They don't use registrations or lack thereof for ticketing purposes. According to the ordinance, technically, if you're not registered and you ride your bike around the city, that is a violation of Fitchburg policy ordinance. So this is something that the League of American Bicyclists has identified in a lot of communities as something that could be a barrier to cycling, and they like to make sure that we're reducing as many barriers as possible, even if it's just a psychological barrier and not actually a cost one. That could still be a problem. So what we were talking about with the officers, and this has been kind of previewed for us already by the city of Madison. Several neighboring municipalities are looking at different registration programs that the city wouldn't necessarily be running, but they could tap into to get information, and it would hopefully be a little bit more user friendly for cyclists. One of them is called Bike Index. One is 529 Garage. Madison actually at their January 5th meeting, they did repeal their mandatory bike registration ordinance, and they're going to look into whether one of those two options is something that they want to look into instead. So these are voluntary registration programs. They are free to users. If the city wants to still be able to get data from them and kind of use those databases to help track down bikes and work with other cities to do the same, then there is a cost that comes with it. So that's something we'd have to consider, anywhere from $500 to $4,000 a year, depending on which one we used and what level of access we wanted the city to have. But it would be free to users. There's the advantage with these national bike registration programs that it's easier for cities to partner with each other, and it's easier to recover bikes that are lost or stolen across city lines. So that's a pretty nice feature. One of the major selling points for Madison getting rid of their ordinance and going with something like 529 Garage or Bike Index is that they had a 0.5 FTE, a half of a full-time role working on their bike registrations. They're bringing in the registrations from cyclists, tracking everything in their database, sending it out, sending stickers out to cyclists. That's not so much an issue for Fitchburg, where we're getting 8 to 12 new registrations a year, and so it's definitely some staff time in the police department, but it's not as cumbersome for Fitchburg. For us, it's more about just a voluntary program being a bit more friendly to cyclists getting registered and getting out on the streets. So I did kind of put some information in the packet, kind of a write-up on all of that information. I put in the text of the existing ordinances and then some cost comparisons with the Bike Index and the 529 Garage options. I guess what I'd like to get here is a sense from the committee of, do we want to push for the existing bike registration ordinance to be completely stricken, or do we want to look to modify it in some way? Do we want to keep city-run registrations? Do we want to do, if we want the city to still organize these registrations basically in an Excel spreadsheet the way we've been doing, do we want to eliminate the fee and just make that a free service? If we're not doing city-run registrations, do we want to just eliminate everything entirely, or do we want to partner with one of these national registrations? And if so, then I'd look into the two options, Bike Index and 529, and see which one of those might be have a better offering, be more feasible. But I guess just kind of some brief discussion on this I'd love to hear, and then kind of maybe take an informal vote of what the committee thinks on how we want to go forward.
So, Phil, you mentioned waiving the fee. Does that come separately from this requirement that there could possibly be a ticket if you weren't registered?
Yeah, that's separate. So the ordinance as it's written right now, and because I've got that pasted in here, I can just quote it. Registration and fee schedule for bicycles shall be set forth in the city fee schedule. So the ordinance doesn't name a particular fee, but the police department keeps this fee schedule. I believe it's $10 for a lifetime bicycle registration. I know there's some cities you have to renew your registration, but in Fitchburg, it's just a one-time thing. But that is currently set at $10 to get your registration sticker.
reasonable benefits for.
Oh, you're breaking up, excuse me.
I'm sorry. We're done. You can. The registration in terms of like data you can show on like people that have gotten bikes returned to them.
I haven't seen data on bike returns. I believe what we heard from the police department is that they return, I don't know, Mark, do you remember the exact number? It's below 5%. It's just a couple a year, I think.
They have 12, Joe, they have 12 bikes stolen a year roughly is what Lieutenant Hardrick reported. And he said that they found, I think, 3 or 4 of them. That's about right. The key with this is before we figure out the money, we can also get into it with at a small amount and try it. But what we got cited for, Ellie, in our gold scorecard is that we have a mandatory ordinance we're not enforcing. That's the key. And I think who does it down the roads is an issue. Monona and Madison, as Phil said, are both looking at going to bike index. So I think just improving what we have is our goal here. And as he said, we're not going to finish this today. We're trying to tee it up. So sorry for the long-winded answer, Joe.
And then, sorry, Ellie, did you have another question or comment?
Oh, just, I think from an accessibility standpoint, both the like waiving the fee and then also this requirement, you know, that where you could possibly be cited. I think both of those are key things to kind of get rid of accessibility wise.
How do the rest of you feel?
Yeah. I'd like to see us do something like the bike index or something different than that. It'd be worth it.
And I also wanted to share one other thing. I almost forgot about this. Steve Arnold has really been a big part of the push behind this. So I've appreciated his keeping this going, getting the ball rolling. He did share he shared an email a couple weeks ago with me and Mark and Chad and Ned, and I just wanted to kind of share that really quickly. Actually, rather than doing a screen share, I'm just gonna read it rather than asking you all to read something that's kind of small text. But basically, what Steve says is he reviewed the ordinances and the enabling statute and the Wisconsin statutes. That what one option that would be available to us is outright repealing the existing bike ordinance. Another thing that could be done is that the ordinance the text could be repealed. So if we still wanted the code of ordinances to say something about bike registration, instead of what it says currently, which is every owner of a bicycle within the city shall, within 10 days of acquisition of said bicycle, properly register and tag said bicycle. No person shall operate a bicycle in the city unless it's been properly registered and tagged in the city or has a valid and current registration in another municipality. So Steve suggested we could also say, we could replace that with something like every owner of a bicycle within the city may properly register said bicycle by serial number with whatever service we end up using or its successor. Such bicycle shall be deemed properly registered and licensed in the city. So the one potential advantage Steve identified with that is that if another municipality has something in their ordinances about you need to have your bike registered in this city or another one, then if we have that language, then that may be something that could help people who are riding in other cities because they would officially be licensed in Fitchburg. I don't know how important that really is. And I think if you're registered in a national bike registration system, that should cover it anyway, but that's at least something to consider, that we could modify some of the text to kind of eliminate the mandatory option and make it voluntary while still keeping something in the ordinances about registration. That said, it might be cleaner to just strike the ordinances in their entirety. And I think that was Officer Hartwick's response to Steve's email there. was that, you know, each one kind of had their strengths and weaknesses. I think that the chief said updating rather than striking might make more sense, but it really depends on what we want these ordinances to do.
Phil, I would add one more thing to that. I think that why don't we work for a proposal for our April meeting? I think taking Ellie's comments about access and the money involvement, if it's not an issue, let's try and make it an improved project. I don't care one way or the other about some of the other language, but I think if we do that, we can, like I said, we got 2 months for our next meeting, maybe have a proposal to vote on by then. Does that make sense?
I think so. So I need to check and see whether, so this would be Joe, do you know the process for changing this? Is this submitting an ordinance update or removal? Is that a similar process to a resolution? So is that something I would submit to the council first and then they would send back to committees?
I would imagine so, but check with Tracy.
Yep, I'll check with Tracy on that.
Sure, but I'm assuming.
So we can't have, because there's nothing on the agenda for a vote here. We can't do any kind of official vote. There's nothing to officially vote on, but I'd still like to get a sense from the committee of, it seems like we want to change the existing ordinance. So I guess what I'd like to know if the committee has a preference between striking entirely or updating it, and if there is support behind looking at these two national registration options, if that's something I should consider, and then that'll inform kind of how I move forward, what I might be writing up to present to council. If there's a chance it may have to go to council before they would send it back to us for our April meeting. So I do want to get moving on that and just kind of see what the sense of the committee is.
I liked the wording you used for the updated version. That's something that I didn't think about with like being in compliance in other cities. I think we wouldn't want to put folks in a bind who need to be registered somewhere.
Any other thoughts on that?
I'm with Ellie there. I think you do it in that fashion. I will tell you my preference from the research I've done is bike index, because Madison's going that way and Monona's going that way. And I think it would be, all these folks ride around these trails all through Dane County, and it would be good to be on the same platform. That's my 2 cents. Angie, you're nodding your head. Are you in agreement with this way?
Nope, you're muted, Angie.
Oh, sorry about that. I've been listening to what Steve Arnold's been talking about with bike index in the city of Madison, so I guess that's the one I'm more familiar with. But I like the idea of having something different. I have actually been one of the people who's actually gotten bike licenses from Fitchburg, and I've also had a bike returned through the years. But I like the idea of making it really user-friendly for people.
Okay, that's definitely what I'll look into, is updating ordinance language, see what that process is like. I'll try to have something put together early enough that we can have a committee vote on it in April. And just to your point, Mark, on bike index versus 529 garage, I definitely know more about it as well. If I were personally making a choice, I would just go that route because it's what I've heard about. But going through any kind of, if the city is going to be purchasing a membership, an account in one of these two systems, I just need to make sure that I do my due diligence and that we consider both options equally. And so I definitely, I'll do some research into both of them and look at kind of a pros and cons.
Yeah, you've got your job to do on that. So let us know where your committee can help. They've given you feedback. And again, it'll be a positive thing. Folks, we got about half an hour left. I'm going to try and keep things moving forward. We may get done before our time is out, but I also, Phil, you did attach the 21 goals for the committee, correct?
I did. I can pull that up really quickly. I think that's important to reference as you're presenting this.
Yes, if you would do that, and I'll quickly go through this. So what I did, folks, when I was asked to be chair of this group 2 years ago, we didn't have any goals as a group. And I think from those of you I've known for a while, we started trying to go through and say, what do we need to do as a committee? So I put these 9 things together and I updated it again this year. But I want all of you to say, this makes sense or it doesn't make sense. These are just a roadmap. And I think if you look at what we've talked about, we just talked about item number 7 today. We've talked a little about 8. We've talked about number 5, and we talked about number 4. So all of those things are in number 1. So I think there's a lot of work to do here as a committee. I just want your feedback. I'm not going to walk through each one, but I'd like your feedback. Did we miss anything? Do I have something that's not correct? And if you want to email me or Phil, that's fine. You want to share it now, go ahead. But I just wanted us to be able to, as we talk to our people in the city and our own colleagues who are into biking, what are we working on? So I'm going to stop there and see if any of you have feedback. Okay, I counted to 12. I was taught when I was an administrator to count to 8. Do these look okay to you guys? I guess just give me a thumbs up or offer any feedback. Okay.
I think it looks great, Mark. Thanks for putting all that together. I think
Yeah.
that's important to kind of have a task list for the committee for the year. I think that should prove helpful.
Okay, well then we'll keep moving on, Phil. Do you want to go? I'm going to leave you the mantle here to go over the presentation to the council, and I put together just some thoughts for Phil. So I'm going to turn it over to you and go from there.
Yep. So at the December meeting, we discussed speaking to the committee of the whole. We were able to get on the schedule for that for the March 24th meeting. So Mark is kind of leading up right now the effort on putting together some thoughts on what we'd like to present to the committee at kind of a general, here's what cycling is like in Fitchburg. Where did the bike committee come from? What's the committee's purpose? What is its task? What's it tasked with doing? How does that differ from Bike Fitchburg, and how does the committee interface with them? And then what are the committee's goals? What would the committee like to see accomplished in the coming years? And sort of what sort of support does the committee need? And does cycling in Fitchburg as in a broader sense from City Council? So I included what Mark had thrown together in terms of what the slides and sections might look like, but that's kind of a really high level overview at what a presentation to COW would include. And I think we're curious if anybody is interested in, I don't think we want to overwhelm COW, but certainly it would be nice to have a couple people presenting. We had thought about Andy. I don't know, Mark, if you've asked Andy about presenting to Committee of the Whole, or if we just...
I have not, and Andy's,
okay.
I don't know if Andy's still on the call or not.
He had to leave, so he stepped away. Certainly, Joe, since you'll be there as part of the Committee of the Whole, we would really value your input on some of this stuff, and might even ask you to speak to a couple things during that, but we haven't clarified that yet. If there's anything in particular that we think would carry extra weight coming from you, but would anybody else be interested in helping to put this presentation together, helping to deliver it in March?
Assuming it is, I'd be glad to. I'd be glad to help in any way.
Hey, Joe, a question for you. Do they want us to talk to them? Do they want dialogue? And do the alders wait until it's done to offer their input? I guess I'm just looking, as someone who doesn't go to these meetings on a regular basis, I've only been to one in my 30 years. how does it work?
I can. Yep. I mean, usually it's like a presentation and then alders ask questions. It's 2 hours. Don't have to use the whole time if you don't want to. But I mean, I'm just personally, I'm more of an interactive type of guy, but I haven't seen any of the meetings where there's like breakout activities or anything like innovative. It's usually a presentation and then questions. I think the real purpose of it is like helping the council understand certain issues in a way that'll be helpful for like their decision making in the future. So I think the things probably that you would want to emphasize is if you need the council's support or buy-in on something. So if there's like, for instance, certain things that we need to consider in the capital improvement plan or in the budget for 2022, you know, we should lay out those options in a way that the council can easily digest. And I mean, we're working on a lot of really cool things, so I think the council should hear that too. I bring them up whenever it's time for my like updates in council meetings, but it would be good coming from you all.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going, Phil.
Yeah, there's not much more beyond that. I think, Mark, how you wrote this up. So I've only been to one committee the whole meeting, and it was last year. I'm also a staff liaison to the Resource Conservation Commission, and the RCC presented to COW last year, and I took part in that as well. And it was laid out very similarly to how you have this here, Mark. Kind of what's our purpose, where have we been, where are we going, why do we need council support on this? And so I think it looks great. Given Joe's point about really stressing what the committee needs from council in terms of support, it might be helpful to emphasize things like kind of everything surrounding the bike friendly community. Maybe even pull that in earlier. So right now we've got it as kind of one of the last sections. That might be something to introduce early and then just kind of keep coming back to, and throughout the presentation, tie everything into, primarily making Fitchburg a more bike-friendly community. If we didn't have that silver award, if we weren't pushing for gold, like the goal is still to make the city as bike-friendly and accessible and as large a bike commuting city as possible. But that bike-friendly community designation certainly helps to recognize the steps that we've taken and let us know we're still need to improve. So I think that push for gold is something that we want to hammer a lot in the presentation, and everything that comes along with it. The possibility of a bike share program, the eco counter, whatever bike counters we're going to use, things like that, increasing education.
Hey, I would also say, just from a like communications best practice standpoint, if there are stories or testimonies or anything like that from either, especially from families and mainly from non-able-bodied, white males, like if there's things that come from, really the goal of bike-friendly communities, which is to make sure that everybody can feel safe and not just those who are best equipped to feel safe, that I think that would go a long way. So, I think like Angie's testimonies about, a shoulder not being accessible, if there are emails that you've ever gotten from like families, if there are pictures that you can use of like people biking at events that include little kids. I think any things like that may be good to just like provide a background to the presentation.
Joe, I think that's a good comment. And I think, Phil, we can get a hold of the Boys and Girls Club, because if you folks, I read this morning the Chamber's 2021 guide, which is 72 pages, it's online. There are at least 15 to 20 bicycle pictures in there, at least. And I think that's very important as we look at this going forward. So certainly the Chamber's using cycling is one of the key things for our fair city. So
I think with
yeah, go ahead. Done.
I was going to say with the addition of that new Badger State Trail bridge going over McKee Road, that's now 3 pretty impressive bicycle overpasses that are just in Fitchburg. I don't think many cities, 5-10 times our size can say that, let alone cities the size of Fitchburg. And so I think it's been pretty clear that Fitchburg has really leaned hard into being a bicycling city. And I think just reminding the committee of things like that and kind of emphasizing that there's no reason to stop, that it'd be good to keep pushing that.
I should put my 2 cents in because I've lived here now 25 years in Fitchburg, and much as I have things that I think we need to do, we've come a long way. It's way better than it was when I first moved here. So I've been biking to work for 25 years from Fitchburg, and it is a dramatic improvement.
Yeah, and I would say like highlighting the things that state the case for other benefits are important. So if if the chamber does want to say something, for example, about the economic benefits of biking to tourism, to people moving here, to people wanting to spend their money at businesses in the area. And just as a personal note, I can mention this, but I in my neighborhood, there's 3 major, bike trails that intersect 4 blocks from my house. And that was one of the real reasons why. It wasn't the only reason, but it was definitely one of the reasons why we moved here. And I'm sure there's other people who can say the same thing.
And that was certainly a factor. My wife and I are moving to Fitchburg later this month. We're coming down to the area finally from Monona, and yeah, Fitchburg being really bikeable was a huge factor in that.
Welcome to town. Where are you coming?
Thanks. Wildwood area.
Okay.
So really close to City Hall. I'll be able to bike to work every single day, rain or shine.
Glad to have you.
So I think the comments given, I just threw a draft together. So I think all those comments, we have roughly, Phil, a month to put this together, probably if it has to go in March. Did you want somebody else to volunteer? Since Andy's not on the line, I chose Andy because he's a former councilman. Is there anybody else, as you said, that wants to do this presentation together with us?
When is it? Like the 24th, but what time of day?
It's March 24th. The Committee of the Whole meets at 7 o'clock. Right now, I believe we are the only item on that agenda. We're still kind of trying to figure out if Public Works is going to do a presentation as well, or there was some discussion in December about Bike Fitchburg presenting concurrently. But because they're going through a leadership transition, I think it's probably not the right timing for that. But 7 o'clock is when it starts, and I assume we're going to be the first on the list. And certainly you also don't have to answer right now if you need to think about it. Feel free to email either Mark or myself after this meeting at some point. Let us know if you're interested either in helping to present or even just in being a part of putting the slides together. Certainly we will we'll keep the committee informed either way. As we get the slide deck finished, we're going to share that out and look for comment and feedback. But yeah, definitely let us know if you'd like to be more actively involved.
Thank you.
Joe, I would add one more to this. Your colleagues in Monona are following our roadmap, so to speak, with their developing bike committee. They're getting ready to apply for status. They're getting ready to put in bike index or something of that nature, but they formed a formal bike committee like we have. So I think those are all good things as we move forward. And Phil, we can get a hold of Angela Kinderman at the chamber too for a statement.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the reminder.
Anything else on this topic, Phil?
Not from me, no.
Okay, is there anything else the group, we're at the end of our agenda, but Phil, you still have the staff report to the committee. Do you have anything else you want to cover today?
There are a couple things in the staff report that were now just, there were some updates I wanted to include in December, and those just kind of made it into the Public Works projects update today. So I can skip past those. I can show a couple things. This one, let me do one more screen share here. So Mark and Steve and I put some work into re-updating our city snapshot with the People for Bikes. People for Bikes, Places for Bikes is a website that provides information on cities around the country. So it's very similar to the Bike Friendly Community rating, but this gives scores to cities looking at some similar, some different features. I actually just learned of this back in like November, December, when Steve pinged me and said, "Hey, you should be the city representative for this instead of me or Bill Balke doing it." So this is something that our scores have been a little bit weaker with People for Bikes than with the League of American Bicyclists and their bike friendly community ratings. So I think in 2019 we had a 2.8, and I believe they had our acceleration. So how basically how quickly are things progressing in your city. I think ridership and acceleration were both a little bit stronger the previous year, but this is just based on a submitted snapshot survey from a representative of the city. So Mark and Steve and I worked on that and just submitted the snapshot for Fitchburg for the start of 2021 last week. I'm hoping in the next few weeks we'll hear back on what our score is and see an improvement, but I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is on that. But that's something else to look forward to. And this is just something else I'll probably pick Steve's brain a little bit and look at their website on just kind of a compare contrast and what sorts of information this highlights that we don't necessarily get from the bike friendly communities. The more information that we can get to improve our cycling city, the better off we'll be, I think. So it's kind of nice to have this second one to look at as well. I also reached out about those brown signs from the Badger State Trail that had been talked about at the last meeting, and I still have not gotten a clear answer on that. It sounds like the DNR picked up whatever signs we had from the Badger Trail that were cautioning cyclists about the upcoming McKee intersection. It sounds like the DNR already took those signs and they're going to use them elsewhere, but I'm just looking for confirmation from the DNR. The first couple emails I sent to Kevin, I got the impression that he was thinking I told him I had extras and wanted to know if he needed them. So trying to get that squared away and get a final answer, but I don't think there are going to be additional signs that we'll be able to make use of. So just kind of closing the loop on that. And then one thing I also have is finally some updated numbers. This is the Trafex counter that Dane County Parks has up on the Capital City Trail by the bike roundabout. So I think the last time I shared data, it was through maybe April of 2020. So we got a few extra months in there, and we're still waiting for some more updates. I think this is kind of in the right ballpark, but they just sort of carried forward the May numbers, and they need to do a little scrubbing of data and clean up June, July, August. But this is a rough sense of what overall. One thing to keep in mind is that counter does not distinguish between different types of people it counts. So it could be a rollerblader, a cyclist, a pedestrian walking, somebody walking their dog. But this gives us the total number of people that have passed by that counter month by month back to when it was first installed. And then I broke that down by average number of people per day each one of these months. And then just graphed it pretty simply here, but 18, 19, 20 is orange, green, and blue. And so you can see as people were getting kind of stuck inside for this quarantine, we got a lot more traffic activity over there on the Cap City Trail. I wouldn't anticipate once things get back to, quasi-normal, I don't necessarily expect that the numbers are going to stay this high in the 400 people per day passing by on just that one trail, but certainly we've seen a lot of people being out and active, which is good. But that's pretty much the.
Don't forget, it cut off in September because construction started too.
Right. Yep.
Those
Yeah. And so numbers are going to be
away from there.
Numbers will be pretty much non-existent for the next 10 months. It's a lot of weird kind of one-time unusual circumstances messing with the numbers right now, and so there's going to be a couple years of data that it's a little tough to learn anything from. But I'm going to keep reaching out to Dane County Parks. Sorry, I was trying to think of his name and I'm blanking on it at the moment. But I'm going to keep reaching out to Alex DeSmit and getting those data updates from time to time and sharing them with the committee. And hopefully at some point we'll have other counters on other trails in the city that we can learn from as well. That's it for me for a staff update, Mark. You're muted now.
All right, I'm muted. 6 minutes left in our meeting. Is there anything else that folks want to add or cover today? Again, I'm with Angie. I think we're really doing a good job here moving this committee forward. We got a lot going on. We are working to make biking better in Fitchburg. I think we have an engaged alder, which, Joe, I appreciate your services. Stay in touch. We've got some follow-up points you'll hear back from us on. I would also like you to look at the priorities and give Phil and or myself any feedback on them if we missed something. And the gold plan the same way. And so I don't have anything else for today. Our next meeting is going to be April 6th. Phil, I'll turn it back to you. And I will say thank you for serving this year, folks. I'm having fun with this committee. This is supposed to be fun work. So anyway, have a happy Wednesday or Tuesday.
Did we want to say anything about the Bike Fitchburg meeting? I mean, they're kind of in a transition where the previous people in charge moved out of state to Chicago, and so they're trying to set up plans to remove themselves, and they're in the process of trying to get more board members and things like that. I don't know, is there anything else, Mark, that we should be mentioning at all about that?
I would add two things to that. Thank you, Angie. I forgot about that. I mentioned it early and we started and I didn't get back to it. In February, they're going to have a discussion and election of new officers. This is why Phil and I felt that March to the cow, as it's called, was not the right thing to bring in Bike Fitchburg. Second of all, Joe's wife was on that meeting too. Joe and Angie both linked through the Bike Fitchburg. I've been calling in the last couple of months. Steve Arnold brought through the registration project, as well as he brought through, I guess that's it for right now. But anyway, I think they're in a state of transition. They are different than we are, and it took me a little while to understand that. I think we're going to have to explain that to the council of the whole as we meet with them as well. So they're our colleagues, and I think that's the key. I want to continue to work more with them, so we're on the same page in the future.
I think that's actually one of the steps of moving towards gold, is to have both a city committee and an advocacy group in the community. That's one of the things that they want to see.
Yeah, I think so. And I think having a really active advocacy group is also going to be helpful for some of the initiatives that we're looking at pushing. That there are some things that are just, they require maybe volunteer time that we don't have the staff capacity to handle, or certain fundraising things that are easier for a nonprofit group than the city. So yeah, definitely we'll be looking to partner more with Bike Fitchburg. I think whether it's starting in April or just at some point down the line, I would love to start incorporating a Bike Fitchburg report to the committee, just so that we're kind of kept apprised of what's going on there, whether it is Angie or Joe or Mark who's calling into their meetings, or if we invite one of the board members to regularly sit in on our committee meetings and provide an update at the end. I think it'd be nice to have that, and possibly reciprocate if anybody wanted to regularly be tasked with calling into their meetings and providing a bike committee update. I think that kind of information sharing could be really helpful.
Great idea. I think we can use Angie and Joe now to give that update, Phil. We've already got 2 people there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to call in for a while too, so.
Yeah, I've been going for over a year, so.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I knew that Joe was involved. Angie, I either hadn't heard or forgot. So that's great to know.
I think Joe's actually been involved longer than I have, so.
Well, I may start incorporating that into our agenda as well. I think that would be good for the committee and nonprofit to a little bit more of the right hand knows what the left hand is doing. I believe that's
Okay.
everything, Mark.
Yeah, anything else? I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Moved by Andy and seconded by Angie. Thank you very much, folks, for your time. You will be hearing much more from us soon. So have a good day. And again, we are done at 8:59.